So last Christmas I got my drawing tablet, and with that came a slew of digital art down the pipeline that is 2017. So today in this video I'll be covering all my digital art made this year. I will only go for featured art on my DeviantArt and I'll talk about each briefly. Before I start, I must mention that I did create some digital art before 2017 started, but I won't be covering that stuff because it was before 2017 started. Anyway, let's get right into the recap. For the first half of the year, I used a free art program called Paint Pro, which is the majority of stuff you'll see. Now, I use a program called Clip Studio Paint, or formerly known as Manga Studio. The first piece I made was called Blanc Attempt from Neptunia, by the way. This is a fairly basic drawing with a lot of anatomy mistakes, like the shoulders jutting out, the body just being a block, and the neck being way too long. There are some lines I didn't erase, like the ones on the third part of the coat thing. The hands I obviously didn't draw because I suck at drawing hands. I was indeed using a reference for this image, and for some reason I drew the hat too small. So that was the first piece of 2017. I know, I didn't really talk about it in detail. The second piece I did was called Avatar Background. For this piece I think I put about 5 or 7 hours into, but sadly it's one of the blandest and has very little details in it. I think the main issue is that the background is just a solid colour with no detailing whatsoever. The design is also pretty bad. I'm amazed that it took so long. At least it's not the absolute worst. The third piece is called Effort. This is merely a doodle, but I wanted to feature it here anyway. When I made this, I was just a little bit salty, and I saw people on DeviantArt drawing absolute shite who had tons of followers. This wasn't really just for my frustration, but I thought that others also felt the same way as I did. They probably don't, but who knows? I don't know. The fourth piece I made is called Odd Ones Out fan art. This was some fan art for the Odd Ones Out, obviously, because I liked his content. Of course he didn't see it, but that's fine. I don't care. Do I care? No. There's not much to say about the picture because it's just simplistic, and well, there isn't just much to say. It's just plain. The fifth piece of this year was for an artist I really liked and still kind of do now. It's called Chibi Tilda. I know that's a pretty bad name, but I don't care. This was my first attempt at drawing a chibi digitally, and by the way, I am absolutely terrible at chibis. Anyway, this was for an artist called, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't mention artist names. That's part of the script, but I shouldn't mention artist names. I don't know why, I just don't want to. It's one of their characters. Of course, as you can see, the arms are way too thin and legs and torso are quite fat. The hair is also horrid to look at, but I am not very good at hair anyway, even now. Overall, this piece is meh, to say the least. Another piece of art for another artist I liked, however this time it's a full body, which you can see I am terrible at, even now. This was one of the first attempts at drawing a full body, so things like hands, shoes, etc. were quite hard to draw. Hair is obviously terrible. Anyway, overall, meh. This is a drawing of a white whale from ReZero, which was a pretty good anime, might I say. I tried to draw the whole body of the whale, and it turned out alright, so that's good. I'm not very good at backgrounds, so what I did was just a gradient and a moon. So yeah, not very creative. Overall, it was okay. This is where I wanted to take my drawings a bit more seriously, adding a bit of shading, getting better at anatomy, using some good references, and yeah, that sort of stuff. For the head, there was another version which looked sort of like an orc from the Elder Scrolls. But what I did was use a reference for a bull or cow head, and the result that came out of using those references was pretty good, as you can see now. Like I mentioned before, I tried to do shading. Unfortunately, I didn't establish a light source for how the shading reflects, so that's pretty bad. Some other things which I actually like from this is I added detail onto the armor, like the gem on the waist belt thing, and the little details on the shin and wrist armor. However, the weapon lacked any form of creativity and detail. Overall, pretty okay. This was a little doodle I decided to do after a certain stream. In the stream there was a joke about how coupons can get you everything, so naturally I wanted to do a little thing on this. As you can see, the table and props on the table are poorly drawn, but I'm not very good at perspective and prop drawing, something I should get better at. Overall, there is no overall, it's just a dumb doodle. Ugh! No! Get away from me! This is a shit drawing I made. Why did I even feature this? Enough said, moving on. For number 11, this was for Valentine's Day, and I decided to draw Nepgear, my favourite character from the Neptunia series, by the way. I created this in Paint Tool size. As you can see, the body is fat, which is unintentional, and there is no solid indication of proper clothing, as I didn't do any folds or anything like that, but I am not very good at clothes either. The mouth is just some hellish abomination, as you can see. It's simple, yet not effective at all. Overall, meh. Another thing I made in Paint Tool High, by the way, this time, the Trash Dove. This was the most viewed piece in my gallery because a group wanted it in their collection. I was like, okay, and just accepted. Anyway, it's one of the more simpler pieces in my gallery, so overall, good. This was one of my profile pictures I had in the past, and I must say, there are way too many horns, an excessive amount at that. Aside from the horn problem, the helmet is very bulky compared to its predecessors. Oh, and the visor is way too small as well. Overall, excessive horns are excessive. Also, this was the first featured art I used Clip Studio Paint for my drawings. This is a fairly simplistic knight, obviously inspired by both Skyrim and Dark Souls. I say Skyrim because of the helmet, and Dark Souls because of the shield, and a tad of Berserk because of the pre-Dragon's Hair sword-esque sword. The only bad thing is that there is no textures / details on the armor and stuff. Overall, I'd say it's okay. This is obviously Bendy from Bendy and the Ink Machine. It's just a bland carbon copy of Bendy, so overall bland and poorly constructed at that. At least the hands were decent. Bendy expressions is just that, just various expressions. This was also a self-test on how I did expressions, which, let me say, I'm very bad at expressions. I'm absolutely horrid at handwriting, so yeah. Overall, meh. This was an attempt at drawing 2B from the game Nier Automata, one of my favourite games by the way. This time I tried something different on clothing and also thought about experimenting with shading. The hands were pretty bad, but hands for me are very hard. Overall, okay, I guess. I wanted to try out an underwater scenario to try and get better at simulating an underwater environment, so that's exactly what I tried to do with this drawing. For the background I simply blurred it out to give off a depth of field and a slight gradient to make it sort of look like the ocean. For the creatures, which are Stalker and Peeper, I'd say they are fairly well done. I experimented with perspective a bit, as you can see by the tail of the Stalker, and I think I was able to at least make it look okay. For the Peeper, I think I put less effort into it, as it looks like a blank slate waiting to die. Overall, good. For this piece, all I wanted to do was an experiment with different brushes to simulate what the last giant looked like in Dark Souls 2. I think the texturing looks like moss, which is sort of what I was going for. Overall, meh. This piece is quite obviously I hate everything fan art. This piece is not very good, the colour, shading and anatomy are all awful. The left arm is extremely thin and the hand looks really truly awful. I get that I'm not very good at hands, but this one is one of the worst pieces in this video. I seriously now think this is the worst of the year. It looks like no effort was put into this, so overall shit. On the other hand, no pun intended, or is there a pun intended? This piece is much better than the last, and I did capture Jaden's looks, which by the way this was for Jaden Animation's birthday. It's much more visually appealing than the last one, the shading is more consistent, the overall form is better, and I also made the hands look good. Overall good. This piece is pretty good, it's visually appealing, simplistic and just good. I could have drawn each barber in different poses, giving it a better look instead of duplicating the barber 3 times though. I wanted to create a Cuphead-like look to it, but I didn't do that because I wouldn't know how. The penultimate piece is a birthday gift for an artist I really like. The character is Hatsune Miku, if you didn't know. In this piece, I was debating to do a full body or a chibi. You can see I went with chibi. I was actually quite surprised at the result of this. To me, this is the best chibi I've done. Of course, I'm not very good at hair, clothing, anatomy, etc. But it's definitely one of the best I've done. Yeah, I'm not very good with consistency of lines either. But anyway, overall, good. And finally, the last piece I made this year, simply titled Merry Christmas. I have to say, it is the best piece I made this year as well. The lining is very smooth compared to all the others. Of course, there are some mess-ups though. The left hand, from the character's perspective, I think looked pretty good, because it looks like a hand to me, albeit simple. I had no idea what frame to create around the writing, so I drew something random. I believe I originally wanted to make it a festive Cthulhu, but I didn't know how I would go about doing that, so I just did something random. I also wanted to try out shading again, so I tried it, and I liked the result. But anyway, overall, good. And that was the last of the featured art I created in 2017. Which piece did you like, love, or even dislike, or hate? Leave it in the comments below. And as always, farewell, and happy holidays.